Pennsylvania from the 1860s. This wood probably listened to Abraham Lincoln on November 19th, 1863. So no pressure.
Maybe better than a home.
Oh, I'm honored to be here. Thank you. Really. How lucky are all of we to, be a part of Denali National Park and Preserve, to build our lives around this place, right? Just coming up here on the train a couple days ago reminded me of when I first came to this place many years ago, 43 years ago now. And I was young, I was in my 20s, I was falling in love with every woman on the bus, with their park rangers, out of Anchorage and through Wasilla, the quaint little town of Wasilla. I don't remember any of its charms, but it's right through Wasilla, Talkeetna Mountains, and that's Alaska. I couldn't read any book. I just, wow. And broad paths, and I thought, where's the paths? But just the distribution of the trees and the dwarf birch and everything was perfect. Nothing was out of place. You ever thought about that? We tidy up our homes, and yet when we're out in nature, everything is right where it's supposed to be. Every rock, every spruce cone, every flower. Sometimes even better than expected. And then, wait a minute, I said, where'd this river come from? There's the Alaska Range. Aren't we supposed to climb up and over the centerpiece mountain range of Alaska? Now we're going into this cleft. Where'd this river come from? And the driver said, well, it flows off the south side of the Alaska Range to the east of here, goes along the base of the mountains, and then turns 90 degrees and goes through the mountains. And as I followed it, getting close to the park, I saw where it doubled back on itself. It's flowing north. Now, 180-degree turn, it's flowing south. Another 180-degree turn, it's flowing north and then into that canyon. It's an antecedent river. It was there before tectonics and mountain building raised up, and it even defeated the mountains and the core of the mountains and created that canyon. That is amazing to me. That's something I thought, what is this place? Wow. And then getting into the park, and it's time now to design, as a park interpreter. I know I'm being critiqued right here by Lisa Davis and Barb O'Donnell.
Absolutely.
And I really want to get my highly recommended for rehire. Or even just the recommended for rehire. Because the October blues, remember the October blues? Everything goes in cardboard boxes, and you hope it all still fits in your VW hatchback. And you drive off to wherever. And then there comes that time when you think, that's it, I'm staying. I'm staying. I'm not going back south anymore. This is home. That's a profound thing. So I have to keep track of my time.
No, you don't.
Thank you. So I thought, okay, I thought about this before I got here. Okay, Northern Lights and other amazing sights. Okay, Moose on the Loose, something with a clever title. And here's this really cool gal. She's an illustrator from the Mayo Clinic in Minnesota, Donna Gates. And she calls her program, Mosquitoes Don't Bite, They Suck. Okay then. All right then, getting some license here. And then there's this guy who's been around forever with long red hair, and he loves to watch World Wrestling Federation tapes. and listen to Led Zeppelin. His name is Rick McIntyre, and his program is called Why Arctic Ground Squirrels Are Such Jerks. And I thought, what is going on? I think it was in Milcom. It was the first summer that this place was Denali National Park and Preserve. We did it. We did it. We passed that Lands Act. That was one of the big reasons why Denali Citizens Council, using the name Denali in 1974, not the Mount McKinley Citizens Council, was formed in 1974. I remember a little boy on my first discovery hike. His name was Oliver. Same name as Lynn Colson. Now, he was with his family. I said, where are you from? We come from New York. Little guy, and I said, what are you here to do? He says, I'm here to see cruel animals and other stuff. I thought, so am I. I'm here to see cruel animals. I still am. I don't know. Do any of you miss your youth like I do? Right? To be young again, and I guess I'm supposed to appreciate my age now, my hard-won wisdom, whatever that is. But I miss my youth. In many ways, I do. I don't think I'd go back and do it again. But I miss the knees that were made of steel and the hips that were made of Kevlar. Just hiking into the midnight light. Melanie and I just spent the evening last night with Greg LaHaye and Elise Lockham on their deck in Harold and Vi's old place, with the sun just sliding down a mountain slope and disappearing at 11 p.m. behind Healy Ridge. And I thought, oh my God, this place is just magic. That light. I thought about all the peaks I could climb back then, the ridges I would explore. And now Melanie and I, we got our walking poles and we go up there and we hike up. You know, we've been hiking for an hour or two and go, where would be a good place to take a nap? So we want like a little basin, a little depression, south facing, of course, like a solar basin, and no wind, but the wind often comes from the south, doesn't it? Coming up from Cook Inlet, sailing over the icy, snowy Alaska range. So it's a cold wind, right? You know, okay, and then finally, though, we find a place to take a nap. It's great. I love napping in Denali. Does anybody else love napping in Denali? Another thing we found out coming back here and elsewhere, getting out in the country, and I just have to share this with you. I've been thinking about this, but first I have to say, I was just talking to Jerry Cole about camping. We were camping in Glacier Bay recently, and I said, yeah, I've got 3 thermarests. I said, I might as well just start taking a cot. I don't know how I'm going to fit a cot on my kayak. But we've also determined, I don't know, maybe you figured this out when you were young, but I did not, that rationing your food is nowhere. Why save that one Snickers bar to the last day and drive yourself crazy? Oh, there's that Snickers bar. Don't I can't have it yet. I got to save it for the last day when I have to walk up 1,500 feet to get back to the road. No, eat it now. That way, when you're eating your best food, you're always eating the best of what's left. So these are the things I've learned being in the back country of Denali. But 1974, David Bowie, Elton John, Stevie Wonder, and the Denali Citizens Council. So good stuff. I would like to go back, if I could, a little bit before that to build perspective. I'd like to go back to 1968 when I was a 17-year-old kid in high school in Spokane, and the Vietnam War was raging, and I had 2 brothers over there, one a second lieutenant on the ground, and the other flying as a navigator for the U.S. Navy based out of Atsugi, Japan. So he would fly over North Vietnam to site surface-to-air missile sites. They'd have to let the missile fire at their plane, and they'd have to let it get 98% of the way to them and fall out of the sky to dodge it. They would plot a firing site so that the American bombers could fly over Vietnam and bomb the hell out of North Vietnam. My mother hated that war. She was going to take me to Canada. And I thought then that America was going to end that year. Maybe some of you close to my age did too. Martin Luther King Jr. shot and killed Bobby Kennedy. So on to Chicago, and let's win there after he just won, spoken in California, spoken in Los Angeles, and we shot and killed. Those two brilliant lights going out, and then riots in the streets, and then the Tet Offensive. And I thought, oh my God, we're going to destroy ourselves. And it's a good perspective to think back on that, given where we stand today. And then something amazing happened. And the Koyukon people, not far from here, talk about luck. Maybe you've read Make Prayers to the Raven by Richard Nelson, one of the most valuable books, I believe, that exists on Alaska. An ethnography unlike any other ever written. He talks about how the Koyukon believe in luck. And I think we had some luck at the end of 1968 because Apollo 8 slingshotted around the backside of the moon that had never been done before and took a photograph of Earthrise in sterile lunar surface. And none of us had ever seen our home like that before. It was stunning. And it was world changing, I believe. And then, of course, 1969, Abbey Road. Paul McCartney thought, how do I end this album? He loved Shakespeare, so he used a couplet. And in the end, the love you take is equal to the love you make. And then things started to really happen because, I believe, of Earthrise, because of luck. It can happen anytime. In 1970, we got Earth Day, the Clean Air Act, and the Environmental Protection Agency. 1971, John Lennon released Imagine. We got the Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act that specified in Section 17D2 of that act, as many of you know, that there should be a National Interest Lands Act. Large pieces of Alaska preserved for the American people, but really for the people of the world, and really for the benefit of the land, the natives, and every species beyond us itself, as a gift to the world. Could it happen? It was a big ask in 1971. 1972, the Clean Water Act, the George Parks Highway is completed. And the National Park Service, looking into the future, said, let's initiate a bus system in this park, in this Denali. 1973, the Endangered Species Act. I just tingle when I say that. Construction begins on the Trans-Alaska Oil Pipeline. And then the Denali Citizens Council, created in large part, not solely, but in large part, to work on ANILCA and gateway issues. It would ultimately be involved in so many issues with so much dedication, snowmobiling, coal bed methane, wolf issues, stampede. Just remarkable what this organization has devoted itself in the last 50 years. I love that its little subtitle is advocating for the wildlife, wilderness, and way of life in and around Denali National Park. Wildlife comes first. It was the first, Mount McKinley National Park was the first national park created after the establishment of the National Park Service. And it was also the first national park created to save wildlife. Isn't that cool? Let's not forget that. And then Nixon resigned. Yeah. 1975, the fall of Saigon. 58,000 Americans died over there. Most of them boys 18, 19, and 20 years old. And then the governor of Georgia becomes president, Jimmy Carter, and his Secretary of the Interior is the governor of Idaho, Cecil Amherst. And everybody gets to work on this Lands Act. It's kind of like a vanishing point in a painting. Can we get there? And we did. And it turned out to be a massive exercise in compromise, working it out back and forth. And then Carter is defeated by Ronald Reagan in November of 1980. And the next month, December 2nd, he signs ANILCA into law. Would we have gotten ANILCA without Carter? I mean, it was specified in ANCSA that it should happen, but no, I'm not so certain it would have happened otherwise. Some of you maybe remember that there was this great task force that the National Park Service put together from different employees around the country, historians, ecologists, anthropologists, to travel around Alaska and work with the native groups in the state of Alaska and others to design these new national parks. And I remember thinking back in 81 when I was applying for Alaska, wow, Yukon Charlie, who's he? It's a whole preserve named after me, Aniakchak. Where is that? In Gates of the Arctic. What are they made of? What are the gates of the Arctic? Right? It was just so exciting, and they all came into being. And Bill Brown, the historian, the great historian who was on the D2 task force, said to me one day, he said, we were all born too late to join up in World War II. We were born too late to help save the world and eradicate fascism from Western Europe. But we still got to save Alaska. We got to save America. We got to create ANILCA and do our very best work. I'll never forget that. He said, bring them up here and let them fall in love with it. Make them fall in love with it, and it will do wonders. So things were looking good, right? It was an exciting time. Since 1933, when FDR became president on March 4th, 1933, there was basically this bipartisan liberal consensus of how government should work. It created the strongest middle class we've ever had. It evened out the playing field. It prioritized the needs of the many over the wants of the few. It regulated business. It provided the social safety net. It protected, and when needed, expanded civil rights. And it built infrastructure. So what happened? Why do we find ourselves where we are today? It's important to talk about this because this is what we're up against, and it's real. It's very real. It's deep and it's wide. It's a river of resentment. It's a river of anger. It's a river of sadness. Basically, reason, higher education, and critical thinking are under attack in the United States. And the Denali Citizens Council and all of us who live and love Denali National Park come in touch with this. My friends here in the National Park Service just dealt with it just a couple of days ago. So we've got biodiversity collapse in the last 50 years. We've lost 60% of the wild mammals on Earth. 60% decline in the last 50 years. A 30% decline in North American birds. We're now in the midst of the 6th great mass extinction, with extinction rates roughly 1,000 times higher than historic levels. Carbon dioxide in the atmosphere was about 320 parts per million in 1974. Today it's about 428 and going up 2 parts per million every year. That's because the human race pumps into the atmosphere roughly 2.4 million pounds of carbon dioxide every second of every day. But it appears to be close to reaching its zenith. And renewables are coming on like gangbusters. And anything that's growing at an exponential rate has outlandish potential. So all we need is some luck and hard work. Right? Yale scientist Gus Speth once said, I used to think the three greatest threats to our survival were the climate crisis, ecosystem failure, and biodiversity collapse. I was wrong. It's so great when somebody says, I was wrong. I now know that the greatest threats to our livable world are human selfishness, greed, and apathy. And we scientists don't know how to handle that. So what to do, everybody? What to do? The great journalist Martha Gellhorn said, people often say with pride, I'm not interested in politics. They might as well say, oh, I'm not interested in my standard of living, my health, my job, my rights, my freedoms, my future, or any future for that matter. If we mean to keep control over our world and lives, we must be interested in politics. So here's a quick retrospective, I think, of how we got there. And do a little research of your own on this. I'll just skate right over these rather than take them to the limit they shouldn't go. So I was born in 1951. That year, William F. Buckley wrote a book called God and Man at Yale, which says that truthful reporting based on verifiable evidence is really just a plot by liberal media to undermine American conservative values. At the same time, Ayn Rand, an immigrant from Russia, she wrote 2 best-selling novels that basically portrayed altruism as weakness and greed as virtue and strength. I'm not even going to give you the names of these novels. They're absurd. But what a gal. She's Scotch. She hated government regulations, especially when they came down hard on tobacco. And she smoked her whole life, eventually went on Social Security and Medicare, remarried, changed her name, and died of lung cancer. And then some of you may know about Lewis M. Powell, the lawyer in Washington, D.C. in 1971, later became an associate justice of the Supreme Court. He wrote a letter to the head of the Education Committee for the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. And it's now become known as the Powell Memo, or the Powell Edict. And it said that big business is under attack in America. And I think he was largely responding, in a way, to John Lennon's song Imagine. I mean, William F. Buckley basically called for Christian nationalism and unfettered capitalism, unfettered business. And on the 8th day, God created the corporation, that kind of thing. And so Powell, picking up on that and on Ayn Rand and others, he said, big business is under attack in America. Something's going on, clean air, clean water. EPA, oh my goodness. So he said, all you businessmen in New York need to move people to Capitol Hill and live there. And live there and be there 10 hours a day, 340 days a year on Capitol Hill. And lobby the hell out of Congress. Make America great again. Take over the judiciary, roll back onerous laws, and never apologize. They found their man in Ronald Reagan in 1981, the Reagan Revolution, the first year at Denali National Park and Preserve, and James Watt, Secretary of the Interior. So Reagan's reversal was to take down Jimmy Carter's solar panels on the roof of the White House. But he began in earnest to dismantle the liberal consensus, deregulate the banks, feed the Pentagon, triple the national debt, kill the fairness doctrine, which gives rise to Fox, Newsmax, Rush Limbaugh, and others, say government is the problem, not the solution. Drown it in the bathtub. Empower the evangelicals, erode civil rights, and make voting more difficult. In short, in lieu of science, cook up conspiracies. In short, all I need are my blazing beliefs to know I'm right. I was just talking to Dan Ireland about this book by Kurt Anderson called Fantasyland. It's a great read if you haven't done it. So, human caused climate change, baloney. Only God can change the climate. So here we are, trapped. But are we doomed? No, we are not. We are not doomed. Anything can happen, right? Another Earthrise, another Apollo 8, a Greta Thunberg, a Charles Sheldon can come out of nowhere in their own way in our time. We're just not programmed, are we, for a climate crisis type of a crisis? I mean, our Paleolithic minds are programmed like, look, tiger down by the river coming this way, run, hide, but not, look, cracking ceiling cave, could collapse in 10 years, better move now. It's not how we're programmed for this kind of a crisis, but that does not mean that we can't handle it. It's just up against a big challenge. And I try to remember that golden opportunities mask themselves as insurmountable problems. They do. I'll say it again. Golden opportunities mask themselves as insurmountable problems. Bring it on. In her remarkable little book, The Green Book, Mary Pfeiffer, a grandmother in Nebraska. She's a best-selling author of Reviving Ophelia, maybe 25 years ago. You might remember that book about how young girls, teenage girls, give up on their dreams because of social pressure. And she wrote this beautiful book called Reviving Ophelia. Mary Pfeiffer in The Green Book says there's 4 steps. Many of you in this room have gone through these all. I have. Some of you might be on the cusp of number 2 or number 3 or number 4. So let me just share them with you as food for thought. The first is when you find yourselves, what we're up against is awareness. Whoa. The second step is pain and suffering. Damn. Oh. The third step is acceptance. Okay. And the fourth step is the medicine. It's what you get to give to yourself or give yourself permission to do as the medicine or the wings to fly. And that is activism. That's Denali Citizens Council. One of the best things you can do where we find ourselves today, everybody, is join Act Blue, Common Cause, Move On, Third Act. Make monthly donations for as little as $8 a month. These organizations are out to turn states blue in 2024 for the big election coming up. And they know what they're doing. And if you give them a steady little flow of money, they can hire staff. So we do. We stand on the cusp of a revolution, I believe, a green energy revolution. And on the corner of my laptop, I said this last night at the Monthly Education Center. I have a quote by Carl Sagan, and I used this quote. I finally got to use this quote in my last or second to last Guardian piece. And it says this: anything else you're interested in is not going to happen if you can't breathe the air or drink the water. Don't sit this one out. Do something. You are, by accident of fate, alive at one of the most critical moments in the history of the planet. So we are blessed. We are also blessed just to be here now. And we are blessed to get to step in to where we find ourselves. Friedrich Nietzsche said, everybody laughed at the dancers until they too heard the music. So let us sing. Let us dance. Invite others to join us. Remember this, President Biden's Inflation Reduction Act has turned out to be a more significant piece of climate legislation than the 2015 Paris Climate Accords. Renewable energy is booming. And all of that, the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act, would not have happened had John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock lost their 2021 US Senate races in Georgia. And it would not have happened without the remarkable Stacey Abrams. Never forget that. It's so cool. It's one thing to care, it's another thing to act. If we're going to save this place, it's going to take sacrifice. It's going to take hard work. It just is. It's the way it is. It's going to take late nights and long hours, difficult decisions, unwavering commitment, and it will all be worth it. It will all be worth it. When you get to the end of your lives, you can say, yes, I made a difference. Because Denali National Park and Preserve is the social liberal contract. Think about it. It is infrastructure built by tectonics, volcanism, ice, water, wind, sunlight, photosynthesis, ecology, and every little miracle of nature. Every plant, every pica. Melanie loves picas. It is a social safety net, is it not? A place to heal and begin again every day. And it's civil rights. And if not equal opportunity, then it should be. Let's work on that. It is regulation and rules and our own government, but not the cold hand of tyranny, but the warm hand of benevolent wisdom to curb the worst impulses of those who might otherwise degrade what we love and what we need. Denali is a promise to the yet unborn that if we here today get it right, they too, the unborn, can experience cool aminals and other stuff. It has taken and it will continue to take commitment, conviction, intelligence, and creativity. Consider for a moment, everybody, these 6 smart letters written from members of the DCC Board of Members about the Pretty Rocks, all written last fall. Steve Carwile. Over the past 70 years, when periodic proposals to improve the road have emerged, protests have succeeded in reminding decision makers what we have and what we could lose. Nancy Bale. During those years and up until the present, DCC continued to advocate for inexpensive access along our wonderful park road with limits to protect resources. Now we are facing the tough realization that this wonderful road is suffering, breaking, falling apart, doomed, perhaps. Charlie Lowe. In context, the bridge under construction at Pretty Rocks is like a single stitch attempting to hold together a fraying garment that will continue to fall apart beyond the anchors of the sturdy new thread. And the anchors themselves are more fragile than the buttresses of other park bridges, requiring a technological fix to keep the ground frozen underneath. Nancy Russell. Every day I turn around at the East Fork River. I gaze up at Polychrome Pass and ache for that view. My mind wanders farther to Highway Pass and I wonder, what magic is happening out there? Scott Richardson. I am not of the same mind as some who believe that the road and its westward potential are done. I don't want it to be. I have seen too many touching, joyous, life-affirming, life-changing moments in people to want to give up on some solution to a return out there. And Nan Eagleson. The park makes a big deal about their recycling program, discussions about using eco-friendlier vehicles. Last one out of the building, turn off the lights, the signs, etc. But is this bridge their answer to the existential issue of climate change? The carbon footprint of building the bridge over Polychrome is staggering. The cost has shot up from 25 million to 130 million. Change orders will be issued. Taxpayers will pay. The bridge goes forward. All it takes is a lot of taxpayer dollars and a lot of denial. Socialize the cost and privatize the profit. So why deny? Why care? How about this? Focus, calm, sanctuary, curiosity, beauty, quiet, and joy. Mindfulness, exquisite light, outrageous adventure, freedom, gratitude, heart, and art, and the privilege to be in the Pleistocene landscape that's largely undefiled by man. As such is mostly wilderness with half of the building. It's also a sudden wolf, a dozen caribou, or a mother grizzly and her cubs sliding down a snowbank. It's time with friends, laughing and marveling and discovering cool animals and other stuff. It's inspiration, education, provocation, love, personal growth, epiphanies left and right, more inspiration, imagination, birdsong, and other forms of music, rhymes and harmonies we're only just beginning to hear, to understand, and appreciate. And yet more inspiration. It's a democracy for the land, a break on the wheel of runaway development and money getting, a place to leave room for others, a library of nature, a 6 million acre healthcare facility with no Taco Bells, Jiffy Lubes, shopping malls, fences, billboards, monarchies, missionaries, or priests. It's a magical place filled with promise and potential, with clearing storms instead of stained glass, with ferocious winds, bitter cold winters, tough plants and animals, and even more inspiration. With doll sheep up high, lynx in the forest, plus sparrows, saxifrages, lichens, and owls, and sandhill cranes against alpenglow peaks, and a Lapland longspur so still on its tundra nest that a fox walks by 50 feet away and misses it. Denali is an awareness of being alive in a way that's new, but also ancient. It's timelessness, but also timefulness, with time everywhere, depending on one's state of mind and the powers of observation. And let us not forget reflection, adversity, love, resilience, and very important, restraint and respect. And finally, more inspiration. Here on the far side of North America, roughly twice as close to the North Pole as we are to the equator, in the so-called last frontier, many of the other frontiers having been destroyed by frontiersmen, we work to build a better world by protecting the best of what we already have. By saying, no, not here, enough already. Pour your payment elsewhere. That's why Denali. It's simple and it's hard and it's worthy of our very best efforts. We're all deeply fortunate, are we not, that we can gather like this and hold political views in opposition to, say, our governor, our congressional delegation, our president, whomever, and not be arrested or censored. I've been to totalitarian regimes and once met a dissident who spent 3 years in the Siberian gulag for distributing leftist pamphlets, not for writing them, but for distributing them. He showed me the scars on his back while his girlfriend, who worked 6 days a week, 10 hours a day in a shoe factory, cried in a crowded little apartment in Sofia, Bulgaria. I asked him, what happened to those who wrote the pamphlets? He shook his head and said, they disappeared. We should never take our freedoms and our voices and the importance of the written and spoken word for granted. Never. Fascism is only one election away. So let us celebrate and tip our hats to the Denali Citizens Council. 50 years of vision, dedication, hard work, and love and maybe some luck. Another Apollo 8 and Earthrise can happen at any time and change perspectives anywhere. Another Greta Thunberg, another Charles Sheldon, another Stacey Abrams, all while the river abides. Let us not take for granted this outrageous Nanana River, right here, our neighbor. There's something to be learned here. How to dig in, perhaps, how to hold our ground, how to shape the world. If that big mountain out west has lessons to teach us, as we all know it does, and if all those cool aminals and other stuff have lessons to teach us, as we all know they do, given all that promise and potential, then so does this river, right here, right now. That's why Denali. That's why we're here. That's why we celebrate. So good evening to you all, and good luck.
Um, I invite everyone. I want to move on to the next adventure this evening, which is the music, which was scheduled to start no later than 8:30. We're just gonna make it. But if you have questions generated by Kim's inspirational address as our keynote, please do come talk to him and ask those. Two more quick things. One, I just wanted to I guess reinforce here that Denali Citizens Council is made up of people, and those people are you all. And this group of people has a lot of power when we work together. And building on the energy that Kim sees out there for making real positive change, we want to tap this group of people while we have you together this weekend to figure out how to move DCC forward in as powerful ways we can. You all have invested energy in this organization over decades, and let's take that energy and that knowledge and chart a course for the next 50 years. Again, send us your thoughts, talk to us during this weekend, fill out our paper forms, go to the website, and let us know your ideas for how we move this organization forward from here, what you appreciate about it, about DCC, because this really matters. This is what we're hoping to get out of this 50th anniversary celebration. Lan Cole and Nicole Dutton are going to be performing. A Soft Party, the name of their group, we're going to be performing here in just a second. But the second thing I wanted to say is that it was suggested to me that we get a photo with all the people who have served on the DCC board. And since Land is one of those, before he gets started, what I was thinking is maybe all of us would come up here and we could get a picture taken right in front of the stage here just before they get started. And with that, I'm going to close out the immediate evening event. I invite all current or former board members to come up here. We'll snap a quick picture. The music will start. And I invite everyone to hang out, converse, enjoy. Thank you all for being here. So yeah, sure. Yeah. And, yeah, let's
Should I move this? Uh-oh, is this still?
Oh, it is. Yeah,
Can I move it?
yeah, you can.
I can hit end.
8, 12. One, two, three. Great. Great. And what's that?
Right, I hit end. It seemed like the right thing to do.
Oh, you did. Oh, very good. So we needed to stop.